In this chapter, while discussing front-end and back-end, we'll be looking into other terminologies like URL, domain, subdomain, hosting, UI, and UX. Most of the freelancers that claim that they do web designing mostly don't code the website themselves. They go to other web apps that are created to design websites, and they simply pick templates and redesign them, like you would do during graphic designing. Sometimes they could start completely from scratch instead of using templates, but still, they simply select components, shapes, texts, alignment, font type, font size, and they try to customize the website for their clients. Now that's where limitations come in. The web functions or features are only limited to the available components or functions on the web design platform. And this can be so frustrating at times, especially when your client demands for a function that's not available. Also, when the client hires a vibe coder or an actual web developer, it is difficult or even impossible to edit the existing website since they don't have access to the source code. Most web designer platforms won't give you the source code since they'll be hosting the website for you. And this limitation is because the web designer freelancer only has control of the front end, not the back end. That brings up the question, what is front end? Let's use the POS Bank ATM machine as an example. There's an outer part that is visible which you have access to, and there's an inner invisible part that does most of the work. You can liken the front end to that outer visible part of the ATM machine, while the inner invisible part is the back end. So the front end of a website, web app, mobile app, or desktop app encompasses all the visible parts that the user interacts with, containing shapes, texts, colors, components, links, photos, or even videos. Back-end, on the other hand, include the codes, internal instructions, database, and API keys that carries out most of the functions and instructions before presenting the output to the front end. You can also liken this interaction to a live show. There are those working behind the scene as the back end, making everything that the actors do on the front end possible. Now, we'll be looking into the terminologies mentioned at the beginning of this chapter. The first one is URL. URL is an acronym for Uniform Resource Locator. It is simply the link to any specific page on your website or web app. URL could be linked to the sign-up page, link to user dashboard, WhatsApp group link, Telegram call link, Twitter post links, and so on. Secondly, we have domain. A domain is like the main address to a website or web app. Although a URL is also an address, a domain is specific to a whole web house, while a URL is specific to single pages in that web house. While URLs could be very long, domains are usually shorter. A domain could be tjstar.com, google.com, vo.app.mtn.ng, blogshop.io, and the rest. So domain basically has the business or company name linked to an extension like .com, .ng, .io, .app, .ai, .dev, or even longer ones like .com.ng, .org.ng, and similar. Thirdly, we have subdomain. Subdomains are simply extended rooms in that web house, while URLs are specific locations of items or objects in any room of that web house. If you have the domain tjstar.com, you could create a subdomain blog.tjstar.com or dev.tjstar.com. Fourthly is hosting. Having domain as the main door to a web house and subdomain as the other doors to the extended rooms in the web house, hosting itself is like the spaces of storage in the web house. So the doors lead to the rooms, but the rooms are divided into front ends and back ends, so that most of the hosting is not accessible, while the parts direct to the doors are accessible. So you could move your domain to a different hosting, just as you could move your doors to a different house or room. Fifthly is UI. UI is an acronym for User Interface. The user interface, just as the name implies, is the interface that the user of a website or web app interacts with. Although it is similar to front end, it specifically focuses on the design of this interface, its design and appearance, color theme, fonts, and arrangement of elements. Finally, the UX, which represents user experience, refers to how easily operational the user functionalities are. In conclusion, this course is designed to give you control of both front end and back end. The UI, UX, URL, domain, and subdomain are part of the front end, while the hosting is basically considered back end. See you in the next chapter.